Can I ask you to identify yourself first, sir?
Well, I'm called Chuck Agustin. I'm retired officer of the Philippine Navy.
Okay.
And my last job in the active service was Coast Guard Commandant.
Okay. Tell me, yeah, how did you get to know each other? How did it all start?
Well,
Where?
well, first of all, I didn't know. I graduated in 1960,
Uh-huh.
and when I reported to the armed forces, I immediately found out about then Captain Fidel B. Ramos,
Oh,
who
okay.
was who was known to be an outstanding Army officer and a West Point graduate. And I believe I met him for the first time during one of the Army Navy football game reunions, because every December of each year there is a traditional reunion among West Point and Annapolis graduates, starting way back during the colonial days.
Talaga?
And I think that's where I first met him. But I didn't get to talk to him. I was only an ensign or a second lieutenant.
You were a few years his junior, ano?
10 years, exactly.
10 years. Okay.
1950 and 1960.
Okay.
I graduated 1960.
Oh, but he was a West Pointer. You were a
Yes.
Annapolis man.
Then-
Wala bang ano? Wala bang rivalry yun?
No, there's a rivalry between Annapolis and West Point in football.
Okay.
And,
So
and
that's,
it's a very, very friendly rivalry, and it's really a source of many stories. It's the highlight of the football season of each academy. That's the last before Christmas,
ano yun? So,
December.
every year. So, tinuloy ninyo dito yun? Sa,
Well, no. The football game is done mostly in
In the
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But the football game is reviewed here in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
During the American days, it was done at the Army and Navy Club
Okay,
of Manila, and they pick it up live by shortwave at the Army and Navy Club. And the Americans, West Point and Annapolis, they go there, they have dinner, fellowship, and so it is about 2 o'clock in the morning here, 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning here, because it's 12 hours away.
Yeah.
And then and so by the time it's finished, they're either drunk or asleep. But it's very interesting how they do it.
And whoever wins has bragging rights for 1
Right,
year.
for 1 year, yes.
Until the next game. But when was the first time you actually met and started working together?
Well, when I was a tactical officer at the Philippine Military Academy, that was the first time that I met him face to face at the grandstand at PMA.
Okay.
And well, we did really talk very much. I don't know whether he knew me, but I knew him because people were talking. Some people were saying that that's Captain Ramos.
Ganun. So ano yung reputasyon niya, sir?
Oh, he was quite known as a good infantry combat officer, both in Luzon, and he had been in Korea. And at about that time, he was known to have done a very, very good staff work to organize the special forces, and especially Special Forces Airborne, in which he was I think he was the first company commander of the first Special Forces company.
The founder, ano?
Founder, yes. And that was the first and last time I saw him for a long time.
Was there some bond there? I mean, you two being trained by U.S. military institutions.
Well, in reality, there is an automatic bond actually, because after all, they only send one each year to the academy, sometimes two. And I did really have a close bond with him at the time, but I do recall that when he became the commander of the first division commander, the third division in Cebu. That's where he got promoted, and I I was asked, at that time I was the editor of the Cavalier magazine, and I was told to write an article about him. So I wrote, and I think he liked it, but we never really talked about it. However, what surprised me, and this is what I admire about him. General Espino, the chief of staff, recognized him as the future chief of staff, knowing his record
Talaga.
at that time.
Oo.
And so, General Espino asked President Ramos to head a committee for the future size and shape of the armed forces of the Philippines. He was then a newly promoted general, and he was made the chairman. And shortly thereafter, he was appointed by the president as chief PC.
Okay.
So they were conducting the study at Rame, and the story goes that he would ask all the members of the committee to report at something like 4 o'clock in the morning, and they do jogging
Okay.
to wake up and have breakfast and then start the meeting at Camp Rame, the conference room.
Oh, wow.
But the reason I mentioned this was the Philippine Navy we did not like the proposed reorganization of the armed forces
Oh.
with respect to the Philippine Navy.
Oh.
And so I took the initiative of coming out with a paper that would oppose it. And when the Navy chief learned about this, he called me and said, "I like your idea. Why don't you include my chief of staff, his chief of staff, to be your chairman, and we'll make you an official committee." And so he did it. We were about 4 people working on that, and we published our paper opposing at least the Navy portion, because what President Ramos saw then was the Canadian model. Canada, under the leadership of Prime Minister Lester Pearson, and he had a defense minister called Leo Cadu, had this idea of a uniservice, one service, that is, you cannot see the identity of the Navy, Army, and Air Force. They're all in one roster, except that they have a maritime command, an air command, and the ground force command. So we didn't like that, because we wanted, and they would have one uniform only. We did not like that, and so we opposed it. We wanted to insist that the uniform of the Navy will stay. And so a lot of people in GHQ looked at us as rebels, and I got assigned to GHQ. But what I found out was that General Espino liked our paper, liked our study, because he also did not like the uniservice idea. But the reason I mentioned this was I was expecting that President Ramos will really hate me, but he did not take it against me, surprisingly.
Talaga?
No,
So you got to work with him already then?
not yet. I was
pa lang yung umiikot.
I was assigned then at J5.
Oh,
Then I got assigned at J2, and then we met each other occasionally during meetings on intelligence and security. Yes.
But I guess he was already what? He was already PC chief, as you mentioned, and vice chief.
Well, I became later chief of staff of the Constabulary of the Philippine Coast Guard, and this was already 1980, going towards going towards the EDSA revolution.
So, medyo nagiging turbulent na yung time.
Yes,
no?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And in those days, I really admired him for his sticking to his guns as a professional soldier, so to say.
Why so? I mean,
Every time he is interviewed regarding what would be his position, especially during the crucial days, during going into the snap election,
but
and he insisted sticking it out professionally.
Trabaho lang.
Just trabaho lang. Follow the Constitution.
Pero were you here? Weren't you posted
Well, no,
overseas?
that was not yet. I was still Chief of Staff of the Coast Guard prior. I'm still talking yun prior to the snap election.
Okay. So, but yeah, no, it became Ninoy was assassinated. So ano yung ano? I mean, what was the perception of FVR at the time? I mean, he was ano, no? He was
Chief PC.
He was
Chief PC.
implementing
Yes.
martial law.
Yes.
No?
Well, the general impression I had was he was surprised, just like I was. He was surprised, and he didn't like it. He didn't like such a thing destabilizing our country.
What about the reputation among his ano, his subordinates?
Well, actually, he was very well respected, and we always talk about it. He was very well respected
Talaga.
by not only in the constabulary but also in the entire armed forces.
Ano yung basehan? Why so?
Based on his reputation, we like him very much because during martial law, especially when he becomes acting chief of staff, when General Espino is abroad or going somewhere, he's always the one picked by General Espino as the acting chief of staff. And I like the way he handled things. First of all, he doesn't want any high-profile presence of generals with too many security. He wants a convoy that do not disrupt traffic, and no pushing your way around. Yeah, I like that, very professional. Just like in the U.S. when ranking officers and government officials move about without too much fanfare.
But nagkaroon ng ano?
And then kuripot siya. No lavish expenses, no lavish lunches during his visits,
Tell me
etc.
about that.
Yeah, that's part of the instructions given to all the commanders when he visit. It's always part of it. No high profile convoys, not much security, and no lavish expenses.
Talaga. So ano talaga?
Because in those days, during that time in the 80s, the commanders really spend too much on things like that, on visits and
Talaga.
ceremonies,
Ah,
which is wasting too much government resources.
okay. But he eventually General Espino retired,
Yes.
and the natural or the perceived transition would have been Chief of Staff Fidel Ramos, but it didn't happen. How did that affect the?
Yeah, he would have been the choice of General Espino. But as it turns out, it's always the president who has the final say, and I don't know what happened, but I think General Bear got a legal opinion from somewhere that his promotion to 1-star was ahead of President Ramos, and thus the recommendation for him to become the chief of staff was actually made there in Malacanang, overruling the General Espino. And I would suppose that President Ramos was very much disappointed, but he did his job.
He
kept working efficiently as chief PC, concurrently as vice chief of staff. And that was the situation when I was appointed as defense attaché in Washington, D.C., the last appointee of President Marcos.
What would turn out to be the last,
The last,
military attaché posting
and
of Mr. Marcos.
what I really liked about it was that about President Ramos' reaction was when I was there in Washington and EDSA revolution happened, no, and EDSA one happened,
It's a revolution.
the new administration wanted all of those appointees of Marcos taken out. And
Yeah, to resign. Yeah.
no, not resign. You don't need to resign. You can be relieved by the armed forces, by direction of the president. You can all be replaced. And so there was a move, and it so happens that I was here in the Philippines because of the Lugar Committee. The first job I had actually, I reported to Washington in December, and by that time, President Marcos had made the decision to have a snap election.
Yeah, right.
And the reason he did that, I guess you already know. Reagan got information from the State Department that Marcos was getting to be very unpopular in the Philippines, and so that's what he said to President Marcos. And Marcos said, "No, Mr. President, I'm still very popular, and just to prove to you that the people still want me, I will call a snap election, and you can send all the observers you want to send." And Reagan took that challenge, and so he called the Senate, the U.S. Senate. The Vice President actually is the presiding officer, and the Speaker. You form a bipartisan group that will observe the Philippine snap elections in February.
Okay.
And so Senator Richard Lugar, the chairman of the
Armed
Senate,
Services.
the Senate Foreign Relations Committee,
Foreign.
was tasked to be the chairman, and he had 11 senators and congressmen in his group. Each of them to go to the 11 regions in the Philippines. And the first task I was you take care of their schedule in Manila.
So you were
So
in
I was
Manila.
told to come to Manila
Okay. When it
in
all
January.
happened.
No, before the snap election,
Yeah.
before February. Yeah.
So, but you were still here.
I was already in Washington, so I was asked to come back.
Yes, exactly.
To
when it happened,
be here when Senator Lugar's committee arrives in Manila.
so the committee was here to observe, di ba?
To observe, yes.
Observe,
To observe, but we handled the schedule and security, and so we provided security from Intelligence Service AFP, from the Philippine Constabulary, and the United States Air Force provided all the aircraft, and the State Department provided all the logistic support for them. And so they were really well organized and well equipped. They were reporting every day. And so the State Department knew what the real story was, which turned out to be different from what was being reported here.
Did they stay on up to when the EDSA revolution happened?
They were here up to until after the EDSA revolution, actually.
So you were here.
I was here.
Okay.
I was here,
Okay.
and I was with them. I was with them the whole time, and so they were asking questions about what's the real score on
Who are the
loyalties,
players?
on
Yes,
loyalties. But insofar as the election is concerned, their report is that it was a clear victory for Aquino,
Mrs.
for
Aquino.
Cory Aquino, and. One thing I noticed there was too much overkill on the part of the KBL.
How did the American senators take to that?
Well, they knew that they signed the report that Cory Aquino won, but unfortunately, it took a little time for the embassy and the State Department to process the report. You know how it is, bureaucracy. They want to make sure they checking all the dots and I's in the report, and they heard Reagan state that he was supporting Marcos because Reagan still had the old information that Marcos won because officially that's what happened. And remember, there was even an inauguration at Malacanang with Marcos proclaimed as the victor.
At the same time, Mrs.
Yes,
Aquino was swearing.
and so when the last time and the last time that Senator Lugar heard that, he said, "You tell them to tell you I'm going to fly to Washington, and please have it arranged that from the airport I go straight to the White House to talk to President Reagan." And so that's what he did. When he reached Washington, he talked to Reagan and convinced Reagan about the real result of the elections. And so Reagan called his friend, Senator Laxalt from Nevada, to call up President Marcos. And that was the famous cut clean message, remember that?
Okay.
Which was actually resulted in Marcos leaving Malacanang and eventually landing in Guam.
Yeah, yeah. Or he was, they sent a military U.S. transport.
They sent a helicopter to Malacanang to ferry the first family and several helicopters to Clark. But Marcos wanted to go to Ilocos. But the pilot said, the one says, our orders are to bring you to Guam.
Guam or Hawaii?
No, Guam first.
Guam, okay.
First,
And
then
yeah.
no, Guam by aircraft, and then they were airlifted to Hawaii.
To Hawaii. Okay, okay. So FVR, no? Vice Chief of Staff suddenly joins Minister Enrile and the RAM group in Camp Aguinaldo.
Yes.
Was that something you expected to happen?
I was thinking that it could happen, but I did not really expect it to happen because I did not I was not around him at the time, and when he did, that really changed the whole course of events. In fact, in my opinion, if he did not join Secretary Enrile, maybe it would not have succeeded.
But you said that he was widely perceived as very professional. So was that the reason why nagulat ka na
No, actually,
na bumaliktad siya?
well, actually, no, because knowing that the one who really won was actually Cory, that I think that it was a good move. Yes.
Okay.
But the U.S. in our meetings were asking me because, of course, people were saying that the armed forces is still controlled by President Marcos, and I think at one point General Ramos made a statement that he has about 70% of the armed forces with him, and Marcos was saying that 90% of the armed forces, 80-90% of the armed forces is with him, and that was directly asked of me. What is your assessment of that statement? And I told them I think it's the reverse. I think the majority is with General Ramos instead.
Talaga. His breaking away might have actually turned the tide, ano? Why? Was that because he had a lot of troops who he could call on, or he was widely supported, or
well, it's not only the PC, even the army. Yeah, many army commanders were in support of President Ramos.
So eventually it became a successful revolution, and you went back to your posting in...
Well, of course, since I was here, I had to make a departure call on the chief of staff, and
Who was already
acting. He was already the acting chief of staff, and the first thing he asked me was, "Everybody there will have to be replaced except you."
Oh,
He said that, but you still want to go back? Because I said to him, yes, sir, because EDSA revolution happened 2 days after I shipped all my household goods to Washington, D.C. And my family left last Sunday. Last Sunday, my family left for Canada to wait for me. When I go back to Washington, I'll bring my family to from Canada to Washington. We'll look for a house. We'll look for a house.
So he asked you to,
So,
he asked you to
if
continue with your posting.
Yes, he said, oh, that's your decision, he said. But he did not tell me one thing, that because of the unrest here in the Philippines, because he wants to unite the AFP. In fact, he called it the new AFP.
An AFP. Yeah.
There was, to those who were pro Marcos before with just because he promised not to take any. You were doing your job, and now rejoin the new government. You know. Because they actually didn't leave the government because they didn't they were really not they did not really rebel.
And yeah, no, he took a position of no reprisals.
Yes,
ano?
no reprisals.
Yeah.
So he wanted to reunify, and so he downgraded the position of defense attaché. I mean, not him, but it was recommended give priority to the field commanders here. So that was the trade-off. But when I came back to the U.S., everybody was replaced except me. And one thing I observed him as chief of staff was that one of his daughters one time was in New York, requesting for a visa for Italy, to visit Italy from New York, to fly to Italy, and somebody called me up from New York. He said, a friend of mine called me up. I found out that the daughter of your boss, General Ramos, is applying for visa to Italy, and she would not get it. They kept turning her down.
Oh.
I said, why? Why do they know that she's the daughter? No, she is not stating that. And why did she not ask us to help, or the consulate? No, according to her, the instruction of her father was do not name drop my name or use influence in order to do. And I was really shocked. So I told him, let's see what I can do. So what I did was call up the Italian defense attaché, who happens to be a U.S. Italian Air Force Major General, who was my tennis partner in Washington D.C. in our tennis league.
Okay.
I told him the whole story, and he said, "Let me take care of it." So after about a few hours, he called back and said, "Okay, take down this name and this telephone number. Tell her to call this name and telephone number in the Italian embassy, and he'll take care of him." So that's what my friend relayed to the daughter, and
She got it.
she got it.
Oh, okay.
Very, I was really impressed at the way he, handles a high government job. No influence.
Oh, okay. But he eventually, retired, became SND, and then you came back, no? Kailan ka
He
ba-
was already SND.
SND when
Actually,
when
I was being recalled. This was 1988. I was being recalled already on his instructions because of that. That I was being delayed. But then his senior military assistant, Charlie Tanyega, called me back after a week and said, "Sir, you better delay your departure for the Philippines because the president wants you to be there when he visits the U.S. because he was going to visit in May.
So, presidente na si FVR?
No, he was Secretary of Defense.
Secretary.
He was officially invited by the U.S. Secretary of Defense to
Okay.
visit Washington.
Okay.
And so I had to stay another month. So I stayed there and joined him on his trip, including New York, Washington. He wanted to see Annapolis, and so I brought him to Annapolis, and then we went to L.A. and then back to Washington, and then he flew back to Manila. So I was delayed 1 month, and I came back June of 1988.
And you
And I
rejoined-
became J1, Chief
Yeah.
of Personnel.
Yeah. But yun nga, no, he was, I mean, how did that, no, he was looking out for you also. I mean, he reminded you na
Yes.
umuwi ka muna at na iiwanan ka sa ng mga kabatch mo.
I think he knew that as a result of his approving the reduced table of organization position for defense attaché, I couldn't make it there. So you had to come home. And that's what I like with him too. Even the way he handles AD camps. Some people, when you become an AD camp and you're influenced, he likes you, he keeps you as AD camp and promotes you as AD camp, even if that the position does not call for a higher grade, but he doesn't do that. He will let you go to a higher grade position and get promoted there, without violating the regulations.
Tsaka ayaw niyang no? Apparently, ayaw niyang mag-stagnate yung career. No?
Yes.
No. So, he's
Really.
looking out for... Is that something that was also similar with his other commands?
Yes.
No? I heard that he was very much a stickler with training. Kailangan physically fit ka.
Yes, that-
and mentally. So, aral ka dito, aral ka dun.
Yes. Not too much schooling though. There are people who get too schooled but become unuseful
Pero
because
yun nga,
they're
balance. It's got
yeah.
to be
you have to have a very good balance.
SND, pero how... And then he eventually decided to join the political...
When he was because
the
there
race.
was a clamor from many people, I suppose.
Okay.
Well, when he was SND, we had several coups. Well, the first coup, I think he was still chief of staff. 1987 coup. I was in Washington D.C. But in the 1989 coup, I was already chief of personnel of the AFP J1.
Oo nga pala.
And what surprised me there was, he was there with us all the time in the battle staff.
Talaga.
He was practically staying with us 24 hours a day during the 89 coup.
Pero SND na siya nun.
He was secretary, yes, because he had no battle staff to be close to at TND. It was at GHQ, and so he was with us, and it was.
Ano yung pakiramdam nun, sir?
My feeling at the time was
your own comrades.
my feeling at the time was 50-50. We might all get killed. The rebels might win because the media. There's something wrong with the media. The media seems to have sympathy for the rebels. And can you imagine they were saying that GHQ had been burned when actually we were at GHQ and we were not burning. Actually, what was burning was the wardroom of the headquarters service group, which was at the gate because of that tank that. There was a tank that got stuck there because it was hit by a recoilless rifle, and the fuel leaked and burned the officers' mess of the headquarters service command. And everybody was saying that we were already taken over. My gosh, that was terrible. It's a good thing that President Ramos was there, General De Villa was there.
Cool ba? Was he
Yes, yes, he was cool.
Very steadying force.
Steady Eddie.
Tama nga. Ano ba talaga?
Yes.
Moniker ba talaga na yun? Steady Eddie. Sa
Well,
AFP.
I think that term na Steady Eddie came because he kept on he kept his cool in spite of so many provocations before
Yun.
to part with Marcos, something like that.
And then, nag-iba ng kaunti at the height of
Well,
the coup attempt.
that was a
Steady
different
Eddie
that
pa
was
rin.
different story already because he was convinced, as I was convinced, even if I didn't tell him, he got it from different source that it was really actually Cory that won, and but that was proven true by the walkout of the National Computer System
Comelec,
Center, whose boss happens to be my classmate. To me, it was a shoe in to strive for the presidency. In my opinion, that was the right thing to do. And that's funny about this. When eventually the 1989 coup failed, we were there at the JHQ grandstand for the ceremony. And then, so we had the captured armored vehicles there was an armored vehicle with the wording RAM SFP. RAM means Reform the Armed Forces Movement, and then Soldiers of the Philippine, RAM SFP. I whispered to President Ramos, "Did you see that, sir? RAM SFP. Will you if you put an O after the RAM, it is Ramos FP, Ramos for president. I think they were campaigning for you." And he just smiled.
Pwede. Okay. So he became, he won he won the election. You were still in the service, no?
Oh, yes, because
Kailan ka ba
I retired 1993 when he was
93.
1 year after he became president.
He assumed the presidency. But you were appointed
PPA general manager by him, yes.
to PPA general manager, no? But even before that, was that ikaw ba yung nag-recommend for the Coast Guard to be
Separated from the Navy. Yes.
demilitarize it and transition it as a civilian organization?
Yeah, well, I actually wanted to follow the United States model. The U.S. Coast Guard is not a civilian organization according to U.S. law.
Okay.
It is a military organization, but not dealing with defense, but rather military organization dealing with maritime matters, maritime safety, environmental protection,
Okay.
and maritime security.
How did you and FVR manage to
Well,
make the
you know,
separation?
President
or the
Ramos
transition?
I was this is very funny,
Okay.
In December, I was December born.
Okay.
My family had a surprise birthday party for me for my 80th birthday, and I was playing golf. And I got a call from President Ramos. He said, first of all, happy birthday, because my kids on the surprise birthday party sent him an invitation, I suppose. First of all, happy birthday, but that's not what I'm calling you about. You read this Sunday's bulletin. I have an article there, and I'm writing about you. So he said, and it's covered in the December 16 issue of the bulletin. When I was designated, when I was Coast Guard Commandant when he was inaugurated as president, and 1 month, and during the first ceremonial, the first parade to honor him as president at Campo Aguinaldo, I happened to be one of the troop staff.
Oh.
I was I was the fourth behind the troop commander.
Troop command, yes.
And as usual in parades after the ceremony, you are all asked to go to the
Grandstand.
grandstand to shake hands with the
Yes,
honoree,
yes.
with the guest of honor. And surprisingly, when I was the last, after I shook hands with him, he was telling me a lot of things, and the final thing he said was, okay, you go to my aide after this and get a slot. I want to talk to you. You go to Malacanang. I was so honored, having been invited by the president to see him at Malacanang. I was not even a service commander. I was Coast Guard commander, a subordinate unit of the Navy.
Of the Navy, yes.
So I did that. I scheduled myself, and he gave me about an hour or so
All right.
at Malacanang. I went to the study room, and he said, "Okay, first of all, what are your plans?" And when he said, "What are your plans?" I immediately thought of separating the Coast Guard from the AFP. And so I told him, "Sir, I've been with I was chief of staff of the Coast Guard and deputy commandant when you were before EDSA Revolution, and I think the Coast Guard has no future being part of the Navy. I think we should separate it from the Navy." And he said, Why do you think you can do that when a presidential decree was actually issued by Marcos?" Actually, in the mid-70s, Marcos, at the request of Admiral Ogminar, actually issued a decree separating the Coast Guard from the Navy and putting it under the Department of Defense. If a decree was issued by Marcos, was not able to do that, how do you think you do it? And I said, "Sir, I think Admiral Ogminar had the wrong strategy." And he said, "Oh, what strategy do you think would work?" "Very simple, sir. I think what we should do is convince the Navy first."
Yeah.
And he immediately said, "That would work." He said, "If you can do it, I will not go against it," he said.
Sinuportahan ni FBR to, no? FBR supported this.
Well, eventually, after that, we sent the recommendation to Malacanang, and President Ramos said, "Let's do what I did with the NIA, National Irrigation Administration, which is to transfer it from, I don't know, the NIA right now is under agriculture. I think it used to be under Public Works. So transfer it from Public Works to Malacanang, to the President office, and from office, two-step process from the OP to agriculture, because that is provided for in the revised administrative code, Executive Order 292.
Okay.
So under that provision, we use that provision to separate the Coast Guard from the Navy,
Successful.
actually from the DND
Yes.
to DOTC.
To the OTC. And now it's Maritime Command, tama ba?
No,
O Coast Guard pa rin yun?
Philippine Coast Guard.
Coast Guard pa rin.
The Maritime Command is
Different.
PNP.
Yes.
PNP.
I'm sorry.
They're only concerned with criminal
Yeah.
law and order.
Yes. I'm sorry. Na-confuse ako. Okay. And then, you retired about a year later
Yes.
after successfully transitioning
After-
the Coast Guard.
Reaching the age of 56,
Yes,
actually,
yes.
under the new retirement law.
Oh. Tapos nag
So,
PPP,
he-
PPA, I'm
Philippine
sorry.
Port Authority, yes.
Yeah.
So all I did actually was to walk from my office to the other side, because the headquarters of PPA at the
Oh,
time
it's
was
just across.
also at South Harbor,
Yeah.
across. But they moved to Bonifacio Drive a couple of years ago with a new building.
PPA General Manager, you just crossed the street for the parking lot. But why? What was the mandate? No? Ano yung...
Well, the mandate of PPA actually is to to operate the national port system, which is under PPA. Because not all ports are under PPA, because there are small ports that are under the municipalities.
Yes.
And to operate it efficiently as a one organization and one system. But since you asked about the mandate, this is funny, but when I had my oath taking in Malacanang, I approached President Ramos. He was already president then. I approached him and I said, Mr. President, do you have a specific guidance for me? And he looked at me. He looked at me and said, what guidance are you looking for? You do a good job or I'll fire you. I think, that all presidents should have that kind of guidance to all the cabinet members. You do a good job or I'll fire you. If that is properly done and you have a professional cabinet member, I think he already know what to do. And not do a lot of things that that only enhance your personal motivation or enhance the president's pockets.
So
and one thing I can say is that he never asked me to do anything illegal in order to do anything politically for him or personally for him.
ano yun, after that, hinayaan ka na niya.
Yes, you have the whole mandate, and
Follow whatever
sometimes
is in the
there are
law.
people who write bad about you. He sends somebody to investigate and report back to him, and so he will know what is the real story. Yes.
Just a comment on because you're one among many actually officers from the AFP, from the military, whom FVR appointed to civilian posts after you retired from the military service. And at that time, if you remember, the accusation against FVR was that he was militarizing the cabinet. How do you respond to that observation?
Well, actually, when the president when something like that is encountered by the president, he immediately thinks of whom he thinks is most qualified to handle the job, and that is his perception.
Tell me about yung FBR was talking about the creation of a nautical highway, yung connecting. It's an archipelago. So
Yeah,
diba?
that's funny
Hindi
that
yun, di ba?
that's funny that President Ramos remembers that,
Oh, okay.
because one of the things I recommended was to come out with a 25-year master plan.
Okay.
And on my second year, I made a request to the president that we make a presentation during the PPA anniversary.
Okay.
And he said, okay, you do it in Malacanang.
All right.
So we went there together with some executives in the maritime industry and made a presentation on what we did. And he liked the idea. This is the way you should do it. You should think long range. And so we came out with the first iteration in 1994, I think, or 1995, 1994. And he approved it right there. It's a rolling plan. It is reviewed every year, and it can be altered on a yearly basis. And so I required all the ports to do that. And in that master plan, the nautical highway was incorporated. The development of ports along the Pan-Philippine highway ports, then the east-west highway in the middle, and the north-south highway on the west. And of course, after the Ramos administration, that was already forgotten. They did not continue. ERAP did not continue it. But during the time of Gloria, there was a there was a World Bank funding for doing that, and so I was where was I at the time? I think I was the 2 years I was not in government. I was asked by a company to join them because they were the ones hired as consultant of the World Bank,
Oh, okay.
and so we did that. We did that, and it became the nautical highway.
Became the blueprint.
Yes, but we get it from that 25-year master plan that was stagnant.
But it started nung
Yeah.
panahon ni
The FVR,
ni
yes.
FDR, ano?
But it became called the Nautical Highway Strong Republic SRNH, actually Strong Republic Nautical Highway. It became a glorious project. Inadapt niya, yes.
Niya, ano? Oo, kasi
But I
naantala, no?
but I like the Pan-Philippine Highway idea, and I must admit, it was the brilliant idea of President Marcos.
Marcos pa.
Yes,
Yeah.
because
Oo,
that was a total systems approach. They developed the highway going all the way going to Ilocos Norte and going to Cagayan. That will go to Bicol and then connect by ferry from Sorsogon to Samar, Samar to Leyte, from Liloan Leyte to Surigao.
Yun na yung,
And then highway all the way to Davao, Cagayan de Oro.
yun na yung Roro ngayon, ano?
Yes.
Oo.
And 2, 3, and 4 ferry vessels were part of the project, also funded by JICA, by JBIC now.
There was a move to hopefully extend FBR's term, yung pirma. Naalala mo pa ba yun?
I remember that,
Oo.
yes.
Did you participate in
Well,
that?
I did not participate in anything of that sort. But you know, it's a good idea to if FBR would have been extended because of his policy, his professionalism, and his love of the maritime industry. You know, President Ramos, maybe in the last 3 years of his term, came out with this pole vaulting strategy, if you remember that. And one of the 10 strategies was to develop the Philippines as a maritime power. And he had all of us work on that. And well, after him, that was not given much attention.
Oo nga, no, yun yung kulang, yung kulang na hindi niya nagawa, no?
There are so many things. Also, on his first year, he came out with a Peace and Order Summit,
Oh, yeah.
where all of us were there at the PICC to talk about what is the problem, why is law enforcement, why are the 5 pillars of the justice system not working. We at that time we found out, for instance, a criminal case lasts 5 years, no less than 5 years to try. You know, today it takes close to 20 years. Like, in other words, we have that is something that must really be addressed today. The 5 pillars of the justice system.
Yeah.
The police is has really terribly gone down, and General Bayalde is doing a good job, I think. But the courts, I don't know. You know the recent developments regarding the courts, Supreme Court, etc.
Nag-stay on ka pa, no? Sa in government
I-
after FVR?
I was appointed as the president of the National Defense College of the Philippines for 9 years.
Oh,
Eight
okay.
years, 8 months, yes.
Oh, okay. But,
No longer
After
FBR.
FBR.
It was actually GMA.
GMA.
It was actually GMA, but it was the Secretary of Defense who recommended me.
Nag-co-terminus ka with FBR?
As PPA,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. We had to submit our
Yeah,
courtesy
courtesy.
resignation, and
Pahinga ka muna.
initially,
Private citizen ka.
initially, President Ramos put me in a list, in a short list of people he recommended to be retained.
Mm.
And uh, and I was told that ERAP was wanted to, ERAP was respecting this, and in fact he was surprised that there were two governors, the governor of Mindoro and the governor of Bataan, without my talking to them, also wrote a letter, and because the labor, the port labor in the Port of Manila wanted me out, and I'm not supportive of labor. I didn't even know that I was not supportive of labor.
Okay.
But and when they talked to ERAP, that's what ERAP told them. I cannot remove Commodore Agustin because President Ramos, he's highly recommended by President Ramos, and I got two letters from two governors. But eventually they prepared. They prepared because they're voters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. May ano pa ba? I guess you still meet with FVR and
Yes, because
interaction.
FBR was the one who actually got me got me to organize the Maritime League.
Okay, okay.
We organized the Maritime League during Coast Guard Day at the Army Navy Club of Manila in 1991.
91 pa.
91.
And then tuloy-tuloy.
He spoke there and he encouraged us to organize it. And so we organized it. And then so I requested him to be honorary co-chairman. Because one of the chairman has to be the Secretary of Transportation because
Okay.
the maritime industry is under the Secretary of Transportation. So he was honorary co-chairman with Secretary or boss. Yeah, but he was the more active one. And eventually, when the Coast Guard was separated from the Navy, the honorary co-chair, there must be only one chairman who is the Secretary of Transportation because Coast Guard is already under transportation.
Yeah.
But President Ramos is the chairman emeritus, and so he is always there for us.
Titular.
In June 29, we had our annual meeting, and he was there to induct the new members. We were there at the SMX MOA, and he always writes a column. He always has a column in the. We can get a copy here because he has so many copies.
Yes.
You could see it.
Oo.
In fact, we reproduce also what he wrote in the bulletin on the Coast Guard separation in that magazine.
Okay. Anong mga kwentuhan ninyo pagka nagkikita kayo? Maritime pa rin?
Maritime, yeah, maritime. But
Well,
I meet with
Navy
him.
man, ano?
I meet with him occasionally. I come here occasionally together with some people who are close to him. But definitely during the Army Navy reunion, or he is always there. He very rarely misses the Army Navy reunion.
What do you tell people of your tour of duty with FBR? What do you want them to remember of,
Well,
of FBR?
actually what I told you about his guidance to me on his mandate, what you call mandate, I tell them about that, and my desire that all the presidents of the Philippines would do that. Let just monitor you, and if you don't do a good job, to fire you. And never ask you to do something to enrich him, which has happened a lot in the past year, especially after him.
What do you think is FBR's greatest legacy as president?
Well, I think it's setting the right example, professionalism. Because if you after Marcos, or among all the presidents, it was only during the time of President Ramos that there was no unrest to unseat him. There was no desire, or there was no effort for the military or any group to unseat him. There was none, because he is fair, he is just, he is professional, which is I cannot say for all the presidents after him. In fact, I take the Peter Wallace. I received I always received the Peter Wallace column, a copy of the column by email, and Peter Wallace always talks to him as the best president that we've had, and he wishes that President Ramos had more time as president of the Philippines. I agree with that too.
Thank you very much. Salamat, sir.